Hi, everybody. Day 3 of the Gregg murder trial. She's the 15-year-old that's on trial for firing a .357 Magnum 3 times into her mother's head on March 19th, 2024. Today, we've got a lot to talk about because the state has rested and the defense is putting on their psychiatrists to help prove their insanity defense. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. I'm Rebecca, your host, and this is Crafting and Crime Daily, the show where I recap live trials currently covering Gregg. So the state has rested their case, and it's pretty cut and dry. She did it. We know she did it. The forensic evidence supports that she did it. The video evidence supports that she did it, and she's not denying that she did it. But what is her defense? Insanity. Yes. So in the state of Mississippi, you have to they follow the McNaughton rule. And what is the McNaughton rule? They have to be able to show that at the time this crime was, it doesn't mean she's insane now, but at the time she committed the crime, she was not able to understand the nature and consequences of her actions. And the ability to not understand the wrongfulness of what she was doing. Now you're thinking, but this girl's a genius and we saw her, and how? Well, they have a doctor who's going to tell us why. So, first person they put on the stand, the defense, during their case in chief. So, of course, after the state rested, they moved for judgment of acquittal, which was denied. And that's a motion that's made at the end of the state's case in every trial. So the first person they put on the stand was Dad. He's Smiley, a victim in this case. He's taking the stand to support his daughter, his stepdaughter. Very unusual. So he talked about how great their relationship was, how great the relationship was between the mom and the daughter. And what they did was they put in some wedding photos into evidence so everybody could see how, honky-dory everything was. And then they put in some photos of a time when he bought her a new puppy, and, everything was great. So then we had an officer take the stand who is he's a canine officer. And when the call went out about the shooting, something just flew into my eye. When the call went out about the shooting, he responded over to that neighborhood and they were looking for Carly. So he starts looking for Carly, and he looks over to the side and there she is. And so he picks her up and he's getting a little irritated because they don't know what to do with her. He's being told, go here, go there, no, go here, no, go there. And he says, I'm basically driving her out in circles. The dog's barking. Now the dog was in she was not in the back seat with the dog. I know, I wondered myself. And so somebody did ask, was she in the back seat with that dog? No, they were separate. So he had a body cam on. So part of this, and I don't know why the defense was making such a big deal about this, but part of the body cam footage he muted because according to him, he muted it because he was talking to another officer about something unrelated to this case, which didn't make much sense because immediately before he mutes it and immediately after he mutes it, he's talking about this case. But when he picked her up at the scene, first thing she says is, my dad okay? Is my dad okay? That's important. So then, and then really there's not much to see afterwards. She's, her affect is very flat. She's not crying. She's not hysterical. She's not terrified. Yeah. So they then put on their forensic psychiatrist, a guy out of another state. He's not from Mississippi. He specializes in children and adolescents. So he looked at all of the medical records that they could find. He looked at all of the evidence in the case, the the body cam footage, the surveillance footage. He looked at all of that. He spent 4 hours interviewing Carly. He interviewed the stepfather. He interviewed the maternal grandmother, but he said he didn't really rely on anything that she had to say. Not sure why that was. He didn't really get into it. But he spent 90 minutes with Heath, smiling, interviewing him. He said she was a well-behaved, dutiful daughter up until this shooting happened. She was just, up until this past year, a typical teenager with teenage behavior. You know, one time she snuck out at night. She stayed up past curfew on TikTok on her burner phone. And in the past 6 weeks had started taking, smoking marijuana, maybe 3 times a week, sometimes 4, at school. So, but she did have a history of trauma. When she was 4 years old, she had an 18-month-old sister who passed away. And then when she was 5 to 6 years old, she went through her parents' divorce, and she related to this doctor that it was a very violent relationship between her mom and dad. Although she didn't witness the violence, she did witness the aftermath of the violence, the bruises and stuff on her mom. So there was one night where they snuck out in the middle of the night and she left him. Then they came to a custody agreement, and the father was very unreliable and angry most of the time. There were times where she would go to visit him and he would just sit there the entire weekend, not feed her, nothing to drink. Like he just, something psychiatrically wrong with him. But she did very well academically. But he said from about between 6 and 9 years old, she started hearing voices. And sometimes she would feel very disconnected from herself. Now, these voices were not telling her to do anything. What were the voices saying? They were telling her she was better than other people. You're better than that. Then around 9 years old, she started suffering from depression and was hearing auditory hallucinations, the voices. Then between 11 and 12 years old, she began cutting herself. So this goes back several years, the cutting. And this is a way that teenagers have of coping with their anxiety and their feelings. Well, she had been doing this for a couple of years before December 23rd, when her parents discovered that she was doing this. So they take her to a mental health place, and she is seen by a nurse, a psychiatric nurse practitioner, who puts her on Zoloft. So we now know what the other drug was, Zoloft. And that did not seem to be working for her, but she did also relay that she was having sleeping difficulties. She would try to take melatonin, and that didn't really work. So she'd take more than one melatonin, and that didn't really work. But then she began her therapy on January 24th and would go weekly to see this therapist. So, but the Zoloft, it was a very low dose, and it did not seem to be working. So a week before the shooting, she took her off the Zoloft and put her on the Lexapro. Now, this doctor did not go so far as to say that either of these medications had anything to do with her insanity at the time she committed these murders. Then he said she seemed like her personality, she was more of a follower. So she could be easily led. People would, for example, dare her to do something and she would do it. So she was diagnosed with a major depressive disorder and an adjustment disorder. So what he felt she was suffering from was hypomania, with where it's not where you're just, I don't know how to explain it. Your mood is up all the time. You're full of energy. You're, he said, just not as severe as being bipolar, but because she suffered this hypomania with these bouts of depression, he did diagnose her with bipolar. Bipolar 2. Now, I don't know how that's different than bipolar 1, but he acknowledged that he thought she had bipolar 2, and is in fact now being treated with a drug called Abilify that is a mood stabilizer, and she's doing very well on this medication now. Apparently, if you're bipolar, antidepressants can make it worse. And her biological father, the one she was traumatized by, was also diagnosed with bipolar. And this is a hereditary condition. So she was also suffering from eating disorders. She would binge and purge, not to the point where she was losing a lot of weight, but she did do it on a regular basis, and probably for a couple of years before this incident. So right before the incident, she said the voices were becoming worse, more pronounced, more emphatic, that she was sleeping very bad. She was anxious. And on the morning of March 19th, she woke up and she could not focus that day. She did not smoke any pot that day. She had smoked it the day before, although her drug tests came back positive for cannabinoids. I don't know how long they stay in your system, but they were in her system when she was arrested that day. But she does not remember shooting her mother or her father. After she remembers coming home, letting the dogs out, letting them back in, and does not remember anything after that. That is what she's telling him. Now, if you have no memory of that, this is what I'm saying as a juror. If you don't have any memory of shooting your parents, why is it when you're apprehended that the first question out of your mouth is, how's my stepfather? Is he okay? But that officer did say she never asked about her mother. He didn't think she knew about her mother having been shot. She didn't ask about her. So, interesting. Then he did assess her for malingering. In other words, is she exaggerating things? Is she telling him things she thinks he wants to hear just to get away with something? And he did not feel like she was malingering. He said that prior to this incident, she'd been crying every day for months. In fact, she said that's when her memory returned, when she was picked up by the police. So between the time she lets the dogs back in until she's picked up by the police, she doesn't remember any of that. So basically, he's saying that she had a much more severe psychotic condition than anyone ever realized. And that she, at the time she committed this murder, she was not able to understand the nature and consequences of her conduct, and she was not able to appreciate the wrongfulness of her conduct at the time. So this guy was on the stand all day yesterday, and because there was a lot of back and forth between the defense and the state about evidence, about just arguing about stuff outside the presence of the jury. And the judge was getting really frustrated about it. He's like, they pay these people $25 a day to leave their jobs, and I need to get them back to work. And so at the end of the day, he dismissed the jurors, told them to come back tomorrow because the defense had rested their case. The defendant chose not to take the stand in her own defense. First, she said she wanted to hear what the evidence was, but she did not take the stand. So then The judge told the jury to come back tomorrow to tell their families they'll be back. When next time you see me is when you see me, because it might not be till Friday, it might be till Saturday. He says apparently they have to be sequestered until they reach a decision in this case. He didn't instruct them to pack a bag or anything, but I got the impression he's going to send them out to deliberate this afternoon, because it's 2:00 now and they're still not. The state is putting on a rebuttal case and they are not finished. I did listen to their rebuttal psychiatrist. He interviewed Carly for about 4.5 hours. He thought that, and during this interview, her lawyer was present, and he felt like the lawyer was leading her and prompting her to excess. And he did not feel that she was suffering under this insanity standard at all. But I mean, he's taking quite a long time to say all that. And I'm not sure what time the jury is going to get this case, because it's, like I said, 3:00 Eastern. Oh, no, they're Central. They're still Central time. Okay, 2:00. It's 2:00 there. But they're going to stay until they reach a decision. And when they do, I will bring that to you and let you know what they decided. Let me know down in the comments what you think of this defense. And I will see you guys in the next video when we have a verdict. Take care, everybody. Bye.